So good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Subcommittee of the White Plains Police Reform Task Force on Accountability and Transparency. And we're meeting with Ivy Morris, who's the chair of the Civilian Review Board for the City of Albany in New York State. And we will also be joined shortly by Commander Anthony Batuello, who's also in charge of professional standards for the department. And Katrina has just joined us. She's the chair of this subcommittee. Would you like to just introduce yourself, Katrina, to Ivy? All right, she might. Anyway, Katrina, hopefully you can hear us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you want to just introduce yourself briefly to Ivy?
Sure. Hi, Ivy. I'm Katrina Jackson. I've lived in White Plains for over 40 years. And I'm a part of this police reform committee. I've had incidents, personal incidents myself with White Plains Police. And I'm on a few boards for the city of White Plains, and I do various community events where I'm involved. Yeah, but that's me.
Nice to meet you, Katrina. Nice to meet all of you, actually. And I want to thank you again for inviting me. I also am a person that's worked in community service for a really long time. I'm also, the way I start out my conversations is that I'm a long-term HIV/AIDS survivor. So that's how I have come to community engagement and working to do community service. I was born and raised in Albany, lived there till I was about 15 and then moved away, came back years later, maybe 30 years later, and have moved back into Albany. So what I've seen is a lot of changes, but a lot of things always stay the same. So I'm kind of like Katrina. I'm involved because of my personal life experiences and because of my ancestors, living and having having experiences in Albany, the city of Albany.
Great, thank you. Approximately how large is Albany, Ivy? How many people live in Albany?
I wish I had looked at that to tell you that, because I don't really know. Commander Batuello may know better than I do the exact number, but what we hear is that a lot of people are leaving the state and leaving Albany. So I'm not sure what our population is. It's close to the population of Southfield, Michigan, which is where our new police chief, he originates from, Southfield, Michigan. So it's kind of the same size. So it's not large, but it's not what I would consider a small burg either. I'm sorry, I can't give you an exact number. I'm gonna have to look that up.
That's okay. That's okay.
I just looked up, it's just under 100,000 2020 population.
Thank you.
96,460.
96.
So, it's a little bit larger than the city of White Plains.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, White Plains, we have, I think, 70,000 who stay overnight. What's that?
About 63, 64,000 bedtime population, but it may swell during the day to over 200,000. And I'm sure that's the same thing with Albany. Albany probably swells to about 500,000 or thereof,
I think you're right. Yeah.
With all the representatives.
Right.
So we've been joined by Commander Batuello. Welcome, Commander Batuello.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I just have to leave my subcommittee meeting for our collaborative reform group actually just a few minutes ago. So I apologize, I'm a little tardy here.
No worries. We appreciate you taking the time. We've done our introductions, and Ivy has said that the Civilian Review Board was formed about 20 years ago in the city of Albany in response to a police incident. So what our subcommittee is interested in from both of you is learning more about, well, first of all, the function of the Civilian Review Board. Like, one basic function we've been reading about is that an independent civilian review board will look at all the decisions of the internal affairs department of the police department to make sure that the internal affairs is recommending disciplinary measures that are fair, impartial, and appropriate, and consistent. So I'm wondering if that's one function of your CRB in Albany.
That is one function of our CPRB, and it's actually, we were when in our inception, we were called the Albany Citizens Police Review Board. What we did a few years ago was set up some legislation to change the name so we could be more inclusive and maybe have some more diversity on our board, because all of our boards of members are volunteers. We are now the Albany Community Police Review Board. So we, in short, is CPRB. And our function is to oversee and review complaints that are made by citizens once it has gone through Commander Bacciuello's office at the OPS. And so, we meet.
So you do not directly take complaints from the members of the public?
We do. We take complaints in let me go back because I'm a little fractured here. Let me just say, complaints can come through the police department. Our complaint forms are posted throughout the city in several facilities. So you can go to all the local libraries and pick them up, directly to the police department, directly to our office that handles our administrative work, which is through the Albany Law School, specifically the Government Law Center. They're the ones that handle our administrative procedures. They do all of our administrative work, and clients can, or citizens can bring those complaints directly to the Government Law Center to submit them for review.
Okay.
They can also do them online. I forgot that. We also have a website, albanycprb.org, and that is also a way to file complaints online.
Okay. I remember a few years ago, there was a person who was doing research for the Albany CPRB, and he said that in polling people of the general public in Albany, about 30% knew that the CPRB existed, 30% did not know that it existed, and 30% were unsure whether or not there was one. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I'm wondering if you think those statistics have changed for the residents of Albany.
I think they've changed based on the recent events that have come into due to COVID, due to lockdown, due to things that we have seen regarding police incidents and people of color. So I think that in the summer, once the protests started and once people started talking about accountability and making change, looking for some systemic change, the review board became more of a conversation, and people were more interested in what it was, how it worked, and they actually took an interest in attending the meetings. When we were meeting publicly before the pandemic, we didn't have a lot of attendance, but our meetings are all public and they're open, and like you guys, we're required to record them. So all of this information is on the website. But we were often, people would say to me, I don't even know what that is, and I don't know what you do. So now, since we've started to do virtual meetings, and we've asked for the community to give us recommendations on how they feel we could be bigger, stronger, broader, work better together with the Albany Police Department, that's where we see that now there's more knowledge of actually what we do, and there's more accountability for us too, because I think that with the changes that have made with 50A and the things that the calls for transparency and accountability, we have been given a bigger role. There is more interest. Let me say it that way.
Now,
there's more interest.
If a police officer working for the Albany Police Department were not comfortable going to his or her internal affairs department to file a complaint about another officer, would that officer be able to file a complaint with your board?
I've never had that happen. So I'm going to ask Commander Bacciuello to do that, because we've never had that experience.
That's an excellent question. And so, I mean, we have essentially what we do, we classify two different investigations in my office. There's obviously the internal would be administrative in nature. Obviously the external will be civilian complaints. So that will be considered, to your point, an internal investigation based on the administrative overview of the employee. And it could be a non-sworn employee too. It doesn't have to be a police officer. It does not happen often, thankfully. When that is brought to our attention, they're offered the same confidential rights that the civilian has on the external investigation portion. It's just that, you know, that becomes an administrative overview that the CPRV does not have direct oversight over.
Could you give us a sense, Commander Bacciuello, of the numbers? Like, how many complaints do you get to internal affairs per year on average? And sort of what, if you're able to, if you're allowed to speak to, what are the nature of the complaints? Are they, you know, an officer was rude, disrespectful? Is it more serious than that?
I don't have the raw data right in front of me. We actually just completed an audit that is going to be publicly announced. Hopefully that first week of December, I believe, is the timeline for it. So I hate to misquote the actual numbers of complaints that we receive on a given basis. Maybe Ivy can back me up on that part of it. But I do know off the top of my head, you know, how do I phrase this? Probably the most reoccurrent allegation, you know, of wrongdoing or misconduct, however you want to phrase it, that we do receive from the community, and it basically comes down to call handling. Is how we offer that as a designation, and that could be anything from, you know, we felt the officer, you know, didn't take a report, and you know, and we were trying to report an incident, you know, and the way that the call was handled by the officer, you know, for a variety of reasons. So that seems to be, at least for the 5-year average that I just applied the audit with, that seemed to be our highest complaint type. Policy violations usually stem from conduct, as far as, you know, their interaction with the community. It's usually a courtesy fashion. It could be the way they spoke to the individual in the community. You know, their use of language seems to be the highest on that regard too.
Are your officers all using body cameras?
Yes.
And is it required with any civilian encounter?
It's required. Yes, it is. Anytime they have any interaction with the public. So it doesn't have to be even on a call for service that they were dispatched to. If they have somebody that walks into the police station and they have an encounter with, they have to put that on. And
what's the consequence if they fail to turn on their body camera?
We have a policy on it, obviously, so that would result to a violation of policy.
Okay. I have other questions, but I'm dominating the conversation.
Yeah.
I want to give a chance for others to ask questions. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Ivy, and thanks, Commander and Ivy, for doing this. Ivy mentioned earlier that the police department, I guess they investigate the complaints, and then the review board they review the investigation, like the actually, you know, your findings and et cetera. So if they see something that they question or something that they don't feel you did correctly, what, you know, can they make you go back and redo something, or how's that handled?
That's where we are now, Wade. We prior to this year, what we did was we would send recommendations either to the Common Council or directly back to the commander or the chief, and advise on retraining, or that we felt that some policies need to be reviewed. What we're looking at now is trying to kind of incorporate into our reviews all the information that is available to us now. Prior to 2020, we didn't see officers' names. We didn't see officers' records, disciplinary records. We have access to that now. So that kind of changes how we're going to move forward, and we're working on, and Commander Bacciuello has been extremely patient, because we are trying to walk through and figure out a system for these, because we're all volunteers on our board. And so we're all volunteers. We're looking to streamline our process and make it so that every board member follows the same kind of structure and it gets access to all the information for their particular case. What I did not mention either was that we have monitors that work for the Government Law Center. They also review the OPS investigations too. So there's the review, there's the OPS, there's the monitors for the Government Law Center, and they are trained as well. And they are employed by the Government Law Center and also OPS. So we have those three reviews.
Wow.
If I may just to clarify that too with Ivy, as far as the monitors go, the monitors actually sit in on every step of the process for our investigations, as far as how the GLC, the Government Law Center, and the board itself, as they determine, which cases are going to be assigned an independent monitor. The only thing that they're not privy to is the officer interviews themselves, because they're protected by their union representation. However, if we bring an independent witness in, the complainant themselves, to have a sit-down interview with one of my detectives, that monitor is a part of that interview process. They're allowed to engage with that individual and ask their own independent questions too. So it just adds that another level of transparency to the overall investigation and the process that we have to ensure that the community and the complainant themselves knows that we did a complete and thorough investigation.
So the monitors are not paid by the city of Albany, they're paid by some other entity, by the law school? Who are the monitors paid by or employed by?
They're employed by the Government Law Center.
By the law center.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a city organization, or is that a?
The Government Law Center is within the Albany Law School.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So being that, Ivy, the committee is voluntary, and the law center, I guess the government picks that up. Is there any cost associated with operating the committee, and if so, who does that fall on?
Yeah, there is a budget through the city for the CPRB, but when the board was formed, when the charter was written, it was written so that the administrative would fall, as I said, through the Government Law Center, so that it would have structure, and so that it would give guidance and resources to the volunteers, so that they would have more at their fingertips, things that maybe they couldn't have access to, that the Government Law Center would help them with that, so that they could do their reviews in an objective and a fair way.
I'm just, part of this whole conversation is a potential recommendation for a review board. So that's just one of the questions. I mean, would anybody, Commander or Ivy, be able to share what the budget line is on it? If you know,
Coming out of the city of Albany's budget.
Right, or to the PD or anything like that.
I estimate that it's about $250,000.
Okay.
Does
that sound right, Commander?
It does, yeah, somewhere in that ballpark, and it is directly out of the city of Albany. It's not part of the police department's overall budget.
And that money is not paying for monitors. It's paying for, you have an administrator who kindly answered the phone when I called your phone number. So it's paying,
yes.
It's paying her salary.
Yes.
And what are the other expenses?
And it pays the monitors as well. It also pays if there are trainings that board members and our monitors need to have, that facilitates that. Also, we are enrolled with, the members are enrolled with NACOL, the National Association of Law Enforcement Oversight, which is not in NOS. And we have the availability to get trainings through them. Also attend a conference. When they were doing in-person conferences, they do them annually. And so we would have that availability. Certain members, if they were wanting to attend, would be given that ability through the Government Law Center, making the arrangements and going there to attend trainings.
Jim.
Hi, Commander. Just a quick question. How often does the board kick back findings from OPS?
We have recently, we've had one or two. prior.
Uh-oh, we lost your audio, Ivy. We've lost your audio. No, we cannot hear you.
If you can hear, unplug your connection and plug it back in. Sometimes that works. If you can hear us.
I can hear you guys.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay, good. I didn't hear nada.
No, I was just telling that we had lost you. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I felt like I was alone out here. I'm glad I'm back. But tell me again where we were. That freaked me out. Where were we?
I guess the beginning. I just want to know, like, so we're talking about $250,000, and I always think in terms of bang for buck, and if it's needed, like, if you guys are not kicking back findings, then you're spending $250,000. I want to know how many OPS cases that you oversee a year, and then out of those cases, how many are you kicking back, or a percentage, if you know?
Well, we have about, I would say in the last few years, we've had about 40 cases. And this, as I said, based on the pandemic, things tended to slow down. So we'd have to go back and look and see where we are this year, because we're attempting to regroup and do new things. But it's about 40 cases a year. When I first came on the board in 2015, seemed to be that there were more cases. Seemed to be more like 50 to 60 cases. Of those cases, I would say a percentage of maybe 10% go back.
Okay.
And that's being kind of ballparky, because my brain doesn't allow me to hold the information as how many we have sent back. The commander may know that, but I'm not sure how many, a specific number, Jim. Because what I find is that what I was getting at was that prior to 2020, we were limited to the access that we had and to the abilities that we would to rectify or to come to terms with situations that we found. Because as the commander said, a lot of the complaints that we see are based on disrespect or escalations of miscommunications. That's the majority of it. So, you know, that's what we find, is that if there is, with the addition of the body cameras, that it gives us more to look at and more to review. And then that is, Jim, why I think that some of the cases are starting to go back with a little more frequency than they were previously, because our tasks are expanding.
I would think that with the advent of body cameras, though, the cases would go down. What we found is that everyone behaves on both sides of the equation once that body camera's on. Like the cop behaves better, and then the public, when they know that they're being videoed, they tend to behave better. So the incidents of, you know, rudeness or complaints, they've fallen off.
I think you're right. I think you're right about that. We have seen that the body cameras have really assisted all of us in, doing our jobs a little bit better. And I don't know if the commander wants to weigh in on that, because he's the one that actually, kind of deals with the body camera footage more than on a regular basis. What do you think, Commander?
I mean, it's just an excellent tool to have, investigatively, on the law enforcement side of things. That alone, but obviously community engagement for oversight as well. So, yeah, I would agree with that. And I would think 1 in 5 is a very generous statistic to potentially, kind of wrap our brains around as far as, the number of cases that the CPRV may want further action on, or at least more oversight from OPS to maybe dig a little deeper on maybe a particular issue within the case itself. 1 in 5 would probably be, I don't know, Ivy, probably a generous stat to go by, I would say. But yeah, I mean, the body-worn camera footage itself, I'm not going to profess to know why we have had the dip we've had over the last couple of years, but I would certainly think that that's one aspect of why we're seeing that drop off, especially with the level of allegations for misconduct.
And you have approximately 300 sworn officers in your department?
Correct. Yeah,
okay.
we are budgeted for 341, but we are currently short of that right now.
Okay. And Ivy, your CPRB, it was set up not to have investigative authority or subpoena power. Is that correct?
Oversight power.
It's just
No
oversight.
subpoena power. It was oversight.
It's just over. So that's sort of the
And what we've asked for is what we have asked for and put on the table with the Common Council, because we've submitted some recommendations, and they will be looking at them tomorrow at the Public Safety Committee meeting. We have recommended some changes and some expansions to the board because of what has transpired throughout the nation.
Okay.
Do I have it? I just want to. You said 40 cases over the last 3 years or so. I'm not trying to tie anybody to specific numbers, but was that total, or was that about 40 per year that you're all looking at?
I was thinking 40 per year.
Okay. All right. That's okay.
And thanks for
40 over 3 years. Congratulations to you, Commander, if that's what it was. But okay, that makes.
But don't forget, Chief Costelli, there may still be underreporting of police misconduct in Albany, even with a CPRB. That can still be possible.
I understand it. I get it.
I got a question.
To clarify.
Yeah. How are the folks selected to be on this CRB? I mean,
well, and I'm glad you asked that way, because I neglected to tell you that there are five. It's a 9-member board. Okay. 5 members are can apply through our Common Council. And they submit their resumes and their interest, and the Common Council interviews them and makes selections. So there's 5 members that are picked from the Common Council, and 4 are appointed by the mayor. And I don't know what her approval process is, but I can tell you that I was appointed by the mayor. I'll tell you that. Okay.
Very good.
Ivy, could you email us, please, the founding legal documents from 2000 from the CPRB?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Do the members serve a certain term?
Yes, they serve 2-year terms, 2 or 3-year terms, depending on when you come on the board, because there seems to be a constant ebb and flow. And so very soon I will be ending my term, very soon. But it's 2-year, 3-year terms, depending on when you come on. And there is no consecutive being on the board after that, but you can maybe get off the board for a year or so, or a year or 2, and then you can always come back.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that the meetings are recorded.
Yes.
Is that also part of your oversight when you're reviewing cases? So
yes.
Folks can, the public can see the evidence that you're seeing?
Absolutely. The public is invited to the meetings, and as we go through the review, as I said, these are reported and documented. Our minutes, our committee meetings, our monthly meetings are all recorded for the public and posted to the website.
Okay.
For transparency. And it's, as you said, I think it's really important, because the people that are affected by these issues are not always the ones that are in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a way for others to kind of get information that they need if they, if they can get on the internet, or if they have the ability to view them at a later time.
Oh, so we can look at one of your meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, check that out.
I also wanted to tell you that budget that Jim was asking about is also for the budget also includes a coordinator. So we would have a coordinator. I'm sorry, I had to stop that. The coordinator's salary also comes out of that budget, and the coordinator is the one who literally corrals us and keeps us on task and gets us information. As Nada said, if there's someone that's asking us to become involved in something, or attend an event, or speak.
We lost you again. We lost you again. I was actually going to ask, how often does the CPRB meet? Like, how much of a commitment is it for your board members? But we can't hear you right now.
It's once a month.
Once a month?
Once a month. For about, is it 1.5 to 2 hours, the meeting?
Depends.
Depends.
It depends, because sometimes the commander knows this, I tend to get antsy 2.5 hours. And so
I think you're good at it, personally.
Oh, that's nice of you to say, because I try not to show my kind of antsiness, but sometimes the meetings can run long, because if the cases have a lot of information and a lot of materials, and if the complainant shows up, then they tend to go long. But we like 2-hour meetings.
And do you play a supportive role with helping the Albany Police Department tweak their existing policies in various areas on policing? Do you get involved with policy, or?
What I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that we work together to discuss things and to work through things that may become issues for the community. So I have to say, Commander Batuello and Lieutenant Decker are very open, and the chief are very open and willing to kind of, if we have situations, they're willing to meet with us, and we work through them and discuss them and try to get to a place where we can get some kind of compromise. And we're, that's just my take on it, but it's been to good effect.
Commander,
I'm sorry.
You guys do your internal investigation. You apply discipline as necessary. You turn. I'm assuming this. To turn the results over to the commission. What is the police involvement at that point with the review board, or is there no involvement?
That's a good question, sir. Yeah, the only thing I'll just clarify, the disciplinary portion of the outcome, if there's going to be any, is not turned over to the CPRV. That decision, it's a recommendation that comes up through my detectives, obviously through their investigation, directly to myself, and then it's my counsel with the chief of police to recommend the appropriate action to be taken. But the chief of police has ultimate authority as to what he or she wants to do with that recommendation. So that part of the case outcome, should we have a sustained violation of policy, the outcome of the investigation is kept internal. But all the cases reviewed by the board, either myself or Lieutenant Decker, he's my lieutenant in the Office of Professional Standards. We attend those meetings, and we're there more or less. Well, my role specifically is to report back to Ivy and the board on any updates I have for the Office of Professional Standards and the department as a whole. But when it comes down to their review of the cases, just to clarify any points of confusion potentially, to verify information that may be a topic of consideration for their review during the course of the meeting. So we're there really to supportive role. And in all kidding aside, in all seriousness, I've always viewed it as a partnership. I know me and Ivy joke around a little bit because we've been working for a while together. But my role with APD going back to 2010, when I was a detective in the office before I went through the supervisory ranks, I've always viewed this as a partnership between our department and the CPRB, because once again, we're talking about transparency. I know that these are the buzzwords that everybody talks about, but we take that very seriously in our city specifically to ensure that the community is being heard, and that again our cases are thoroughly, completely reviewed, appropriately. So again, it's very supportive on both ends of the spectrum.
Okay, well, that's very helpful.
I have one other question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The officers or detectives in your unit, are they full-time in that unit, or do they do other things? Are they 100% full-time doing that type of work? Personal responsibility? Yep.
Another great question. Yeah, they are detectives. That is their assignment. So when if I have an opening, if I have a vacancy, I'll hold a review board as per their collective bargaining agreement. And that officer would then essentially be, it's not a true promotion because we don't have the NYPD status where they have actual, monetary raise and whatnot, but it is a title change from officer to detective in our department, and they are full-time dedicated to that unit.
And how many do you have?
4. I have 4 detectives right now, and then 1 detective lieutenant.
Okay.
And then we have 1 non-sworn employee, and she oversees kind of the coordinator role for the CPRB's fashion. She basically assist us with all the paperwork, and she takes on all the use of force reports that we review. Really, I mean, I could go on and talk to you all about an hour's worth of what OPS actually does, you know, in addition to actually overseeing internal investigations, but it's quite a busy office.
Good.
I know you said that you changed it to the Albany community, but the review board only services or reviews Albany PD stuff, not any other jurisdictions or police departments in the area, just Albany?
That's correct. What falls, because of, you know, certain other neighborhoods or communities may fall under the Albany police, that is not directly in Albany, we would review those as well. We learned that recently. But basically, our focus was on the city of Albany, city and county. I wanted to ask Katrina, if Katrina had any questions or anything that she thought we could answer. Because I didn't hear her, so.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
A little bit.
A little low.
Yeah. I wanted to, yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to know if the cases that were reported to the chief and the chief did the investigation and, you know, everything is put back on him. What if the complainant was not satisfied with the outcome of the police chief? What happens at that point? And what type of accountability are the police officer? What is basically, what is the disciplinary action that is taken on the police officers where the cases are founded?
Well, if we were to see a case like that, a lot of the cases, if a complainant made a case like that and we sent it back to the Office of Professional Standards, then we would wait for the decision from the chief and from Commander Bacciuello. And if that wasn't to the complainant's satisfaction and the complainant advised us of that, we would then take it to the mayor and the Common Council. But for the most part, what we find is that and I'm saying this because it's been our experience, if we address these concerns directly, it seems to me that they're handled in a fair way and a way that we see the evidence of change. And that's not just because Commander Bacciuello was here. I think they work toward, as I said, we all work toward getting to a point where we are all kind of one community and kind of working toward the same goal. So sometimes it's hard because we have our own, we stand in our own truth, so to speak, in our own, like Commander Bacciuello, that's his job. And he has a responsibility to the officers that work under him. But what we find is that we have the avenues that I mentioned, but we very seldom have to use them.
And I would just add, Katrina, to your question that, I mean, there's no technical appeal process, if that's what you're asking, as far as if the complainant is dissatisfied with the outcome, but communication is key. And, I do expect my detectives to keep the complainant abreast of the investigation throughout its entirety, all the way through the conclusion. And they do have their opportunity, as Ivy has discussed here, with the actual meeting itself. And they have that public commentary portion of that where they have an opportunity to really, express their viewpoint and in some cases frustration. But at the end of the day, that the facts speak for themselves, and I'm the most interested in that. That's my expectation level for our office and the department in general. That the facts are going to drive the outcome. I don't allow opinions or subjective viewpoints to be entered into the case investigations themselves. So as long as the complainant is thoroughly advised and the communication level is there, which we always do that. We see that time and time again. Sometimes they're not always in full agreement, but very rarely it's usually an agree to disagree type of situation where if the complainant says, all right, well, I do appreciate you know, the facts being told. And again, they see that second level of oversight with the CPRB reviewing it as well in the public format. So we don't really have that. We don't really have too many cases of that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And just to also continue that, Katrina, we also have we have worked really hard as a board to implement a mediation system. And so this gives me a good opportunity to talk about that, because that's the thing that I think would help with what your question is about. The officers and the complainants have the option to opt for mediation, and that means that we wouldn't see the case through the review board, but they would sit down through our, you know, we would get a mediator, we would have both parties present, and they would meet face to face and work that out between themselves and come to some kind of resolution. So I think that might be, you know, that's the best way. And we may have some upcoming cases that we want to kind of get to that mediation process.
And the mediators are paid through your own personal CPRB?
They would also come through that. Yes, they would also be included in that budget. And we are in the process of onboarding some new monitors, because what we're looking to do is to make sure that everyone feels included, and that all opinions and viewpoints are being seen and heard. So we're in the process of training new monitors. They are currently going through the Citizens Police Academy, which is something that all volunteers on the board are required to do, which is, for me, was eye-opening. And it helped me understand, you know, what comes into play when you decide that this is going to be your job. These are things I'd never even considered. So we have monitors going through that. We are also looking to expand our mediators as well. So we are going to start that as well, Nana. So we're going to have some new mediators on board. We're shopping for those and taking some applications regarding that too. Because if this, I'm sorry, Commander, we want this mediation program to be as effective as it possibly can be. Now I'm done.
And just to have further context to that too as well, and I apologize, I was a little late, so I missed the introductions, but my job isn't just to oversee the Office of Professional Standards. I also oversee our Administrative Services Bureau, which again has multiple components to it. It's actually quite large in nature as far as my span of control goes, but the most notable section is the training unit in our police academy, which I directly oversee. So it's worth noting that, because when it comes down to training the new monitors or the new board members, they specifically go on ride-alongs with our officers that get set up through my staff, as well as you know, the Citizen Police Academy, like Ms. Morris just said, but also with the outcomes of some of the investigations as well. It's notable because training is always the biggest forefront as to a recommendation that we have, especially on some of the allegations when it comes down to conduct or call handling. So those recommendations, I directly oversee that part of it. So it helps to kind of bridge that gap with the understanding of the process, the understanding of what goes into training, you know, all of our officers on a continual basis, but specifically with the complaint statutes. So.
Great. Well, this has been very helpful. We really appreciate both of you taking the time to talk with us. You know, I think that if any of us had any further question, I'm sure we could email either of you or both of you.
Absolutely.
I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anyone has one final question or comment.
This is very helpful. I appreciate this, and you know, this gives me a lot of you know, like I'm more educated on the whole subject matter. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you both for taking your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you both. This provided valuable insight. And to Commander Baciuello, is there a Lieutenant Fargione? Lieutenant
Yes.
Fargione. So my daughter graduated from UAlbany. She interned for Lieutenant Fargione. She spoke very highly. She went through the Citizens Academy as well, and she's now a crime analyst. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
That's I used to work in the Children and Family Services Unit as a detective sergeant years ago, so I worked very close with them. So it's good to know.
Oh, that's awesome. Can I just tell you how excited I am about what you're doing in White Plains? And Chief Castelli, I want to thank you so much for joining us, because I know you have a lot on your plate. But I feel like what we're all moving toward is something that is going to be very important for law enforcement and for our communities. So I wanted to thank you all very much. It was great to meet you. Don't be strangers. Let's stay in touch, please. I want to see how it goes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Looking forward to good things.
Yes.
Wade told me that even before all this reform started. He said,